So the Wallabies have now announced their squad that is going to be playing England in the July internationals, and it's quite an interesting looking team. What is going on, guys? It's the Mad Dragon. So we have been doing this little series where we're checking out all of the squads that have been announced that are going to be playing in the July internationals. We've already done Wales, South Africa, Scotland is another one I've already filmed. There's a whole bunch going on. My time is taking up an awful lot. So today we're going to be talking about the Wallabies that have been announced. Now, Australia have been in a weird sort of area. For the past couple of years, we saw those games they had against France where it was just sporadic and red cards and stuff. We saw them lose to Wales, but then they've been playing really well against some of the other Tier 1 nations. They're all over the place a little bit for me at the minute, so I'm really looking forward to see if this Wallaby squad can just nail down, gather together, and set up a bit of a team leading towards this World Cup to see them have... well, actually, in fact, know what? I'm a Wales supporter, so I kind of hope they have a bad World Cup. Totally unbiased over here. So, as we've done for all the other ones, we'll be checking the team over here. Trying to find this Australia team is really difficult. I'm based in the UK, and if you search anything about Wallabies or Australian rugby, all I see is about Danny Care is playing for England. That's the only news I can find about this team. So, I've had to take this one off of Twitter. So, hopefully it's all correct. Hopefully it's all right. I've tried to find out the most I can. Hopefully it is all going to be correct. So, we'll start off by talking about the forwards, starting off with the props. Or the hookers. Oh, all right. There's the first issue. So we took this off Twitter. That's probably why it's wrong. So we're not talking about the hookers there. We are talking about the props. They got them wrong way around. So starting off with the props, as it should be, we've got Alan Alatoa, Angus Bell, Hone Fa Amausili. Hopefully I'm going to pronounce that right. I'm not the most knowledgeable when it comes to Australian rugby, so forgive me if there is any terrible pronunciations. Feel free to spell them phonetically in the comments down below so that I can actually pronounce them correctly next time. Scott Seo, James Slipper, and Taniela Tupou, who I absolutely love. He is in my creator team on Rugby 22. Absolutely love Taniela Tupou. So big boys is what we're seeing here. Obviously, in terms of the world of props, you want to have some big lads, but Australians certainly really bring the big lads. I mean, Ala Alatoa and Taniela Tupou just immediately start to be just monstrous men that will just smash through you. Taniela Tupou is also really fast. He's also got a really good amount of speed. We do see this a couple of times. I've seen it in Super Rugby before, where he will just have that little break and they just get going. We've seen it at International. You just use them as a wrecking ball. Really, really nice setup. Also another uncapped player. There is quite a few uncapped players. It's going to be something we're going to be talking about a little bit through this Australian side because there's a couple of areas here which are going to be interesting to talk about. So moving on to the hookers labelled props on there. We've got Falo Fainga, Lachlan Lonahan, I'm going to guess. I'm going to butcher that guy's name, unfortunately. And finally, David Pirecki. Now, David Pirecki's not someone I know about either. Fainga is a good player, actually. I've seen him play quite a few times. But it'll be interesting to see how they get on. For me there, the standout would be Fainga. But feel free to drop down in the comments a bit more about Pirecki. Not someone I know about. I'm sure he might be doing well at club level in order to get into an international team. But I haven't been able to catch a lot of the Super Rugby this year. So if he's plays for any of the Super Rugby teams, I might have missed that, unfortunately. On to the second rows. In terms of like lock departments now, there is a big thing here. This is probably going to be the main area we're going to talk about in this video. So starting off, we've got Nick Frost, not the guy who was in Shaun of the Dead and Hot Fuzz, but a different guy called Nick Frost. And Catherine Neville, who are both uncapped players. Now, half your lock department there uncapped, big call. Matt Phillip and Darcy Swain. Now, this to me feels like quite an underwhelming lock department, I would say. Now, Australia have got some good locks. I'm interested to see not some couple other people here. Is it Isaac Rodder, who also plays in Australia? Will Skelton, another one. I don't believe Will Skelton's had anything to do with like retirement or anything. I'm going to guess potentially an injury to not have him in this team here. Darcy Swain is a good lock, to be fair. I do know a bit about Darcy Swain. So I feel like this could be an interesting area. Now, Australia are going to be going up against England in their summer internationals now. England are big in the lineup. They love that. It's a real platform for England to launch from. We've seen in the past few years how much Eddie Jones likes to have multiple talented jumpers in his forwards just to land that line out exactly how they want to, and they use that line out to create a bit of a more launch it as a set play from there. Now, one of the big areas you want to attack when playing a team like England is you want to be able to attack the line out, and not having big names in here, a couple of uncapped players, this could be a real target area here for England if Australia aren't going to necessarily be able to compete quite as much of the line out as they would like to. I could see England beginning to try and take advantage there. So that'll be one area to look at when we get round to actually playing the games later on next month. In the back rows, we've got Michael Hooper. Of course we do. It wouldn't be an Australia team without Michael Hooper in there. Will he ever retire? Probably not. He'll probably still be playing when he's 80. Jed Holloway is another uncapped player there. Rob Leota, Pete Samu, Rob Valentini, and Harry Wilson. Now, there's some good back rows in here. I would say viewer discretion of how you'd order them. I would imagine most people would want Michael Hooper in there. Valentini is a bit of a monster. I believe is he a flanker and number 8? I believe so. When I think of him, I think of him like a number 6 shirt. But he could absolutely well be playing number 8. I'm not entirely sure. But there's some good back rows in there. I want to see Australia have a bit more of a game plan. The last few games I've seen from Australia, they feel quite reactionary. They feel like they're just sort of playing the game, seeing what happens, try and work out how the other team's playing, try and react, and sort of they never really seem to come in with an exact game plan of what I want to see from them. So hopefully they nail that a little bit against a team like England. England certainly like to dominate a game and have a presence, so it'll be interesting to see how they get on there. Into the backs then, starting out with the scrum halves. We've got Jake Gordon, Tate McDermott, and Nick White. Now, Nick White, of course, just everywhere. He's in everyone's ear, shouting and telling the ref why he's wrong and stuff. Nick White gets on everyone's nerves on that pitch, and that's exactly what you want a scrum half to do. I think he's a really good player. We have seen him play extremely well for Australia in the past. Tate McDermott is actually coming into his own a little bit. I've been seeing a little bit more from him recently, especially while he's been doing a couple of international games, but also at club level. I've seen some more stuff from him really beginning to put a bit of pressure on Nick White now, so really liking to see that. Jake Gordon's probably the one I know least about in that setup there, but I think there's 3 probably good quite scrum halves there to pick from. In terms of the fly halves, we see a trend that we saw in the South Africa video that we did. Now, only 2 fly halves mentioned, and as I said in that video, it's always a big call in these sort of international games to do 2 fly halves, or 2 dedicated fly halves, I should probably say. Other people can't necessarily play fly half if you need them to, or at least take over the kicking duties, but 2 dedicated is risky. All it takes is 1 injury, 1 red card, and then suddenly a lot of your other games can get a bit damaged. So hopefully they'll be able to cope with that. So the 2 they got named, Quade Cooper and Noah Lolosio. Between the 2 of them, for me, I'm leaning more towards Quade Cooper over Lolosio. I think Lolosio is good. He just not quite hitting the mark for me. Every game that I'm seeing Quade Cooper in, he is at a high standard. Lolosio feels to me like he's just playing a little bit of catch-up at the minute. I don't think his kicking has necessarily been the best from hand either, so I think I'd be leaning more towards Quade Cooper there, but I can imagine Lolosio would be happy to come on in that second half at some point. On to the centres then. We've got Len Ikitau, who I love. I just love that his name's Len. You don't have a lot of Lens in rugby. Absolutely love that. Semu Karevi, Hunter Paisami, and Isaiah Parise. Now we've got some big centres. In fact, now this is a really strong area for me in terms of the Australian team. They have really very solid wingers. Just in terms of size, weight, the way they play is quite aggressive. People like Hunter Paisami and Karevi are really hard to stop once they get going. And I feel like they use them quite well as strike runners, but they're also pretty good in terms of just being able to support run and offload. Really nice to see, and especially when you begin to link them up with a couple of people like Nick White, who will always be waiting on the shoulder. As long as those people can smash through a line and have the offload available, you will have support runners there. I think that's a really strong area for Australia, and we might be able to see if they've been to lack in that lock department a bit. Maybe their forwards aren't going to be quite as engaged. Maybe the area that they're going to be leaning towards is actually playing a bit more of an expansive game, using those backs, play a few set moves, let a couple of those people run straight up the middle. I don't think that's a bad move at all. And then finally on to the back 3. Then we've got Tom Banks, Andrew Kellaway, Corio Betty, Jordan Pataya, Suliasi Vunivalu, who's an uncapped player, and Tom Wright. Now, Vunivalu, I believe, is the lad. Has he come over from Rugby League? And is sort of making waves now in the rugby union scene. So really interested to see a bit about him. Don't know a lot about him, but I'll be trying to keep a bit of an eye out for that. But again, like the centres, this backs setup for Australia is really good. There's some top quality players in it. Jordan Pataya, I'm actually quite a big fan of. I really like the way he plays rugby. Plays right on the edge of what you're capable of. He's one of those players that could just die at any given time from how hard he plays. I really like seeing him there. Corio Betty's a bit of a monster when it comes to the running. We saw the games against France. He's not afraid to play those big teams. He will make some good waves. He's your big try scorer there, potential. They also use him a bit like a forward. He's almost like He's not. I don't think he's quite as big as people like Duan van der Merwe, but they certainly use him in the same way. Get within those 5 meters. Pirecki's in the middle of that just to pick up and slam it through on a pick and drive. Don't think that's a bad move. And then Andrew Kellaway. Whenever I read Andrew Kellaway's name, I just think of the New Zealand commentary teams that I got to see during the Tri Nations, just screaming at 3 a.m. as Andrew Kellaway runs down the field to score an amazing try. I think there's some really, really good players here. A couple of noticeable people missing from this back section. I can imagine people might be missing people like Kurtley Beale. He's a name that I do see hang around the Wallabies team an awful lot, but I don't think he's that big of a miss. I know a lot of people like Kurtley Beale. The last few games I've seen Kurtley Beale play, he hasn't been that impressive to me. I don't think that's an enormous loss. One of the people that I would mention here is probably going to be Rhys Hodge. Not named in this team, which is a big move. I'm not 100% sure in terms of the back three. Someone can absolutely help out in the comments. How many of these people are capable of playing fullback? I'm going to guess Tom Wright and Tom Banks are your fullbacks. Maybe Callaway. Can Pataya play fullback? I'm not sure about their fullback situation. But Rhys Hodge, the thing that he's not necessarily the most standout player, Rhys Hodge, in terms of his general play. I think when he even starts for a starting 15, he's sort of fallen off a little bit now. But the one thing that Rhys Hodge did offer you was the long-range kicking. And we know that England are going to have players like that. We've seen more now. People like Elliot Daly who are switching around those different positions. They will also be able to have the potential for a long-range kicker. And games like this can come down to that 1, 2, 3 point marker right at the end of a game where having a long-range kicker come onto the field can be the thing that allows you to win a game. So to not see Rhys Hodge in there, bit surprising, but I imagine it's going to be down to more of a form thing. I can't read anywhere that he's had an injury when I've been looking, so I'm going to guess people are not necessarily super impressed with his form currently. I'm sure some people can help out with that down in the comment section. But there we have it, guys. That is the team as it's been announced. What do we think of the team? I think this is going to be quite a 50-50 team. I think they've got strong props, a strong back row, and then strong centre and back three. I think the limitation on only having 2 fly halves could be a bit of a misstep if it doesn't begin to go right. Someone's kicking percentage isn't doing very well. You might want to look at that. I'm not sure how many others are capable of moving into the fly half position. That could be a bit of a misstep. The area more concerning to me in this Australian squad is going to be that second row. Not a lot of caps, not a lot of experience in that second row across the board. A lot of uncapped players. I assume there's going to be some big injuries and stuff around that lock department as to why there's a couple of people missing. And playing a team like England have moved an awful lot in the last 5 years. They were the kings of sort of doing the kick over the tops. They were using the strike plays. They moved back to using the forwards more. They've created a bit more of a hybrid play now where they're trying to use the forwards as runners and your backs becoming more like finishers as well. Then you've got people like Marcus Smith who are just creating magic out of nowhere somehow. I've got a feeling for this series, we will probably be seeing England targeting these forwards. They'll know Australia like to keep the ball in hand and use their forwards an awful lot. And I think England will probably be building a team towards targeting that line out. For me is going to be the big area. We know England like that line out as a platform launcher for strike plays. And if you haven't necessarily got the big competitors, if you think about an England team, I haven't actually seen the England team that's been announced. I know they've done a training team. I'm not sure if the official team's out for them yet. But you've got people like your Courtney Laws, your Tojays, George Cruz, Tom Curry, if you want to chuck him in the air, why not? Like there's a lot of people that will get in the air for England and will be pretty competent at it, and they'll just secure that as a maul. This could get very, very tiring. The other side to that is that there is a lot of the Australian forwards here who are very, very big boys. Now, big boys is very useful for a short amount of time. They're going to smash through players, difficult to tackle. You'll be able to wear down the other team. The only problem we find with a couple of people like Taliala Tupou is I'm not sure how often I ever see Taliala Tupou either play a full 80 or even like a 60-minute game. When I think of Taliala Tupou, I see him coming off. He might play a first half. I come on quite early in that second half. He might come off. So I feel like a team like England that'll be absolutely targeting forwards. You might see some of those props get tired quicker. So I think for me, what you'll probably be seeing here is Australia will need to rely on their backs a bit more. And they've got the team there. They've got some good people. I would be saying Nick White, Quade Cooper, Karevi, Paisami, Callaway, Corey Betty, and Tom Wright, let's say. That would probably be my back setup just from looking at that as an absolute blanket cover there. And just try and use those backs. Try and create the room. Try and create the space. I would be trying to avoid giving England possession because I think they'll just take their time and go through phases. I imagine the best way for this would be just keep the ball in hand, use your own phases, don't give them too many box kicks, but also supporting the man. We've seen it more recently how England like to use a technique where they don't have the ball. They actually enjoy kicking the ball back to you, and hopefully they believe their defence is strong enough to earn a penalty from the breakdown situations. So for me, I think using some of the bigger lads to actually smash through a tackler, I'd be using people like Pirecki, Paisami, players like that, Betty. I'd be having those players run strike runs, but actually run at the forwards, I think would be my general technique for that. I would be having Betty run directly at someone like Tom Curry. Betty's not the man who you're just going to be knocking down and getting back over the ball. They're going to have to put body on the line to tackle. And I think taking people out like Tom Curry, Sam Underhill, whoever's going to be announced to the team, take out the big boys and have some of your props support them in that breakdown zone. Don't give them the points. Don't let them get away and try and dictate the game. I think that's going to be the main way I would see the Wallabies being able to counteract in England. But of course, we will eventually get to see that England team, and maybe I'll be completely wrong when it comes down to the actual games. But there we have it, guys. That is going to be my look at the Wallabies team today. If you've enjoyed, make sure to leave this video a like. And if you want to keep up to date with all of these sorts of videos for all the teams coming out towards the Summer Internationals, make sure you are subscribed to the channel just to keep up to date with all the latest videos as they come out. And let me know what you guys think of the team. Who do you think's a big call? Who do you think was a bit of a surprise they got into the team? Who do you believe should have been in the team that was not named? Because I really enjoy reading through the comments where people get to know a little bit more about the Australian rugby than myself. I will never claim to be an aficionado when it comes to Southern Hemisphere rugby. I'm trying my best to learn, and hopefully my pronunciations of people's names have been okay. I'm sure there'll be someone who'll tell me my pronunciations are wrong. But I hope you've all enjoyed today, guys, and I will see you all next time. Bye-bye.